Hello everyone, my name is Adu and this is Ready Go Expat. I have great news for you today. So on December 8th, 2020, Ready Go Expat turned 1. And I'm really happy, and at the same time, I know it has been a tough year for everyone, but yes, we've made it. And to celebrate this, I decided to create a podcast so that I could put interviews with expats who live all around the world in like a different version and of course longer interviews. So I'll just post a few of these interviews here, but all of them, the full interviews will be on the podcast. So the name of the podcast is Expats Exposed, and you can find it on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. In today's video, I'm sharing the first episode of the podcast. So in today's episode, I interviewed Ollie Levido, who's also a YouTuber. He's from Australia, but he currently lives in Bolivia here in South America. He's going to be sharing pros and cons of living in South America, the cost of living, and tips for anyone who's thinking about going to Bolivia. Ready? Go. Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're here with Ollie Levido. He is from Australia, but he's currently in Bolivia working as an English teacher. I actually met Ollie through his YouTube channel, so I want to start talking to him about his YouTube channel and what you can find there. Hello, Ollie.
Hi, Eduardo. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Can you talk a bit about your YouTube channel? I watched I think the first video I watched there was the one about living in Bolivia as an expat, because of course on my channel I talk about life abroad, and the first thing was like, oh, that would be interesting, like someone who is in Bolivia. So can you talk a bit about your YouTube channel and why did you start it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started it around 3.5 months ago, basically because of the quarantine. I'm working at home and I needed like a hobby outside of working and just staying at home and watching Netflix. And I decided to make a YouTube channel that talks about my life here in South America in teaching English in Bolivia. And I've recently started interviewing teachers from around the world to learn about their experiences in the different countries that they've worked, not only for me to learn about, but to help teachers who might be thinking about going and working in different countries.
Yes, there's my video there where I talked about living in China and working in China, but you can also find videos. I watched another one, was a teacher in Vietnam. And there was, what were the other ones that you have done already?
I've done one in Bolivia and I've got one being released tomorrow. Well, about what employers look for, and I've got one coming up in the next few weeks about what new teachers need to do in order to get a job and break into the industry.
That's very good, because that I get that sometimes, because I moved abroad and some teachers are like, oh, but I have no certificate as a teacher, but then I think it would be good to watch this video and see like, well, maybe you don't have, but you have a bachelor's degree and you can even do get a certificate online. I don't know. It's good to see that, because it's an option to like, move abroad and experience different culture and stuff. So speaking of moving abroad, when and why did you leave Australia?
That's a great question. So I left Australia in February of 2019, so almost 2 years ago, and I was coming to the end of a 5-year degree and I couldn't find a job anywhere in Australia. I mean, I looked, probably didn't look as hard as what I could have looked, but it got to October of 2018 and I was stressing like a lot because I was graduating the next month, and then I saw an ad on Facebook from Miranda, the owner of the school here, who I worked with in the UK in 2011, and she was looking for English teachers. And I thought, wow, I've never considered this, but I've always wanted to, because I went to Brazil in 2018, at the start of 2018, and I wanted to come back, and I thought, wow, this is a great opportunity to go back to South America and actually live there and spend more time. So that's exactly what I did.
And you had met her before, so it was not like it was not like you were going to school where you didn't know anyone, so you knew her. So I think you felt a bit safer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like comfortable and safe that I was going to a foreign country where I didn't speak the language, but I actually knew someone there, which definitely helped inform my decision.
So you mentioned that you traveled to Brazil in 2018, and that is one of the reasons why you decided to come to Bolivia, because you had already been to South America, and then you got this job there in Bolivia. Can you tell a little bit about your job? Who do you teach, and what, like your schedule?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work 6 days a week, and my schedule is always all in the afternoon. So I start work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I work till 9 o'clock, Monday to Friday. And then on Saturday, I work from 9 a.m. till 12 a.m. So Monday to Thursday, we teach teenagers from 4 until 7, and then 2 different classes. And then in the evenings, I teach an adults class. It could be starter or it could be advanced. I've got an advanced class at the moment, which is quite nice. And then on Friday afternoons, from 4 o'clock until 7 again, it's kids class. And then from 7 till 9, we teach adults. There are options to work in the morning, but with my schedule, I don't work in the morning with the Bolivian company.
That's very interesting, because it's very similar to what you get here in Brazil. Like your schedule, for instance, we have busy afternoons, Monday to Friday, and a few, of course, evening classes for adults, as you mentioned. And then on Saturdays, like it's very busy in the morning. But then after that, I mean, I think even Brazilian students, they don't want to study English. But like Saturday morning, yes. And the funny thing is that in China, a lot of teachers in language schools, they work on Sundays, because Sunday in China is not like, Brazil, South America, Bolivia is like, no, we don't work on Sundays. I think Europe as well, right? Like
Australia too.
Yeah. When you got to Bolivia, was it even though you knew someone, was it challenging for you at the beginning? What kind of challenges did you have when you got there?
Yeah, definitely. The biggest thing that I noticed when I first arrived was the language barrier. I did study Spanish at university for 2 years, but I basically went to class for 2 hours, 3 hours a week. And then after that, I didn't do anything. Like I didn't do the homework. I didn't like actively try and learn the language. So like that was a wasted opportunity. So when I first arrived here, I noticed that my Spanish was terrible. Like I was scared to go to the supermarket. I was scared to go to the bank. I was scared to go anywhere. And then after a month here, I actually found a partner, and this person didn't speak English. So I kind of learned Spanish from them. And from now I can go to the bank, I can go to the doctors, I can go anywhere, and I can speak and communicate in Spanish, which is great. So definitely the language barrier was the hardest thing, but I don't think it's something that should deter people from going and experiencing a place, because that's all part of it. It's part of the fun, right?
Of course. And in Brazil, most locals, like most Brazilians, don't speak English. Like that's like, I mean, of course, depending where you are, there's gonna be a higher percentage of population that speaks English. But what about in Bolivia? Do Bolivians speak English in Santa Cruz, for example?
Yeah, so I've got a lot of the teachers who have partners or friends, most of them speak English. But if you go to a market, or if you go to the hustle and bustle of the city, you're not going to find people who speak English. For example, taxi drivers and Uber drivers, they don't speak English. People at the work at the supermarket. So like your everyday jobs, not really. But again, I think that's all part of it, and it's a good experience. In La Paz, for example, in the tourist area, they do speak English in the cafes and in the restaurants, or broken English that you can get by ordering if you absolutely have no Spanish.
All right. And you mentioned that you were kind of scared at the beginning to go to places. Were you scared about the safety of the country? Because I'm from Brazil. I can talk a bit about my country. I mean, people, every time I go abroad, that's the first question I'm asked when they say, "Oh, I love Brazil. I'd love to go there." Is it really that dangerous? So is Bolivia dangerous? Or is it a safe country? What would you say?
Yeah, just touching on my experience in Brazil. I've spent about just over 2 months in Brazil traveling. And the first time I went to Brazil, I was quite anxious because I heard on the news and that's what people asked, right? So I was anxious the first time. The second time I felt more comfortable because I had been living in Bolivia for a year and you kind of not get used to it, but things that are a little different to how things are back home become just normal for you if you're living in and experiencing the culture. Yes, I was nervous when I was coming to Bolivia, and I remember the first like month. I had a brand new phone. I had a brand new Google Pixel 2. It was brand new, and I would like shove it down my pants to try and hide it from everybody. And then after 3 weeks, I left it in a taxi.
Oh
So
no, no.
yeah, touch wood, I've never had any problems here. I've never been threatened. I've never experienced any sort of bad behavior. So yeah, touch wood, and it's safe where I am. Like I'm not, it doesn't prevent me from doing anything here.
And I think what is important to mention is that some people, when they come here, they're like, "Oh, the whole country is like." I mean, oh, sorry, not the whole country, the whole continent. Like South America is like, dangerous and stuff. But once you, as you said, like you move there, you live there, so you know that there are areas in the city that you shouldn't be going, and there are times you shouldn't be, like with your phone at midnight walking in some of the areas. Like, I mean, we learned that. The difference is when foreigners come here, they come with their mindset. Perhaps that's what I think, like the European, whatever, North American mindset, and they think, yeah, it's super safe, just like in, back home, and it's not. But you learn that by living here, I think. Yeah, definitely that. And I think Brazil is kind of the same. Like, I mean, there are areas you cannot go, you shouldn't go, I mean, at certain times.
Yeah,
Did you,
absolutely.
like, I don't know much about Bolivia, so I mean, of course, I know about the country and stuff, but I've never traveled there. So could you tell a bit about like a foreigner going there, even as a tourist, or someone who's thinking about moving there? What would they see in Bolivia? What surprised you about the country?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing that kind of surprised me and that foreigners will see is that each region or each city is different. That they have different types of people, the way they dress, they have different foods. I don't really know any of the traditional food names, but each region has its own food. And the weather in each city is different. For example, I live in Santa Cruz. It's the largest city. It's in the southeast of the country. I think there's like a couple of million people here in like a small population. And then you go up to La Paz and it's in the Andes. It's cold. It's kind of in a valley that it shouldn't be. And then yeah, there are different people there. And then you go down to Sucre and Potosi. Potosi is a small colonial town which was really important for the Spanish back, a couple of 100 years ago. And then Sucre, they call it La Ciudad Blanca, which is the white city, and it's just white buildings, and it's beautiful. So I really like the diversity of the architecture. It's not the most beautiful architecture, but each city is different, so different and distinct in its own way.
Yes, I remember one of your videos. You were like reacting to Expedia video about traveling to Bolivia,
Yeah.
and then they mentioned that, like, how regions are different and what you can see in some of the regions. They focus more on La Paz, I think, some of it. But so would you? Because I know La Paz. I mean, La Paz and Santa Cruz are, I think, the most popular cities for like someone who has never been there. We've heard about both cities, and
Mm.
we've heard about the altitude in La Paz, because when we have like football matches and our Brazilian teams go there, like they need to get ready for that because it's not
Yeah.
something. But how would you compare, like if someone is thinking about visiting either or moving to one of the cities, how would you compare both cities?
Absolutely. For living, I definitely recommend Santa Cruz. It's hot basically all year round. We have a couple of cold days. So for the standard of life and the cost of living, I think Santa Cruz is a great option. Hot weather, good people. It's just like a big town. You don't have any trouble like getting anywhere. And, from this side to the city, from to the other side is like, half an hour in a taxi. and the taxis are cheap. I would definitely travel to La Paz, and if you want to live in La Paz, go for it. But you need to understand the fact that it is like 4,000 meters above sea level, and you're going to feel disturbed. I remember when I went to La Paz, that we were a group of 8, and the only effects that I had were just a sore throat. It felt like someone was, like not cutting my throat. I don't want to sound grim, but like a really sore throat. But others were vomiting and throwing up, and which is the same thing. And yeah, feeling really lightheaded, despite the fact that they were drinking like a lot of water. So you need to bear that in mind when you go to La Paz, and it's less easy. It's far more difficult to get around than in Santa Cruz.
Oh, okay. You're talking about like public transportation or just it's bumpier, like what
Well,
the hills?
yeah, just the fact that it's literally built in a valley, and to get it, the roads are quite narrow, so there are a lot of one-way roads, and there's a lot of traffic, a lot of transport. But they have the teleferico, like the cable car system, and if you're a tourist, you can just get on the cable car, and for 3 Bolivianos, which is like, I don't know, 20 US cents, you can take the teleferico like all day, and that's the best way to see the city.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, definitely. You mentioned the cost of living in Santa Cruz is actually good. What is it like? I mean, what is expensive and what is cheaper than, maybe, I don't know, you could compare it to Australia or?
I've noticed since I've been here, a lot of on a Saturday, I like to have a drink in a bar or somewhere like that. And I've noticed that a lot of new beer gardens, like the style that you would find back home, and I'm sure they're in Brazil as well, type beer gardens, are opening up more and more, because when I first arrived, I was like shocked to see that people are sitting in shops on plastic tables and plastic chairs eating and drinking, and I'm like, what's this? What's going on? And because it's so weird, we don't have like plastic chairs that we sit on in like restaurants and stuff like that. And yeah, I've noticed like recently more and more cool places to eat and drink are opening, more Western, because you need to remember Bolivia is kind of like, I love Bolivia, but it is like 10 years behind the rest of the world in terms of education and the way banks are run and the process of how to do things here. It's backwards, but it's becoming more Western in the sense of new bars opening up.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the plastic tables and the plastic, I think stools or chairs, like, as well, right? It's funny because in Brazil we have the same. It's like you can go to the fancier, as you mentioned, beer garden and the fancier, restaurants and stuff, open air, like outside, yes. But if you want to eat, like, usually it's meat on the stick and beer. Like, that's where you go. You just sit like on the sidewalk. There's a small shop or, I don't know, a car that opens up and they'll do things there. It's very informal, but people love doing it. I love doing that. But I know what you're saying. Like, sometimes if you want to get like a more like better quality, drinks and meals and, a proper steak, which is super popular here in Brazil, then of course you need to go to like more upscale, I don't know.
Yeah, and even so, the prices in these places they're more expensive, and they're quite they're expensive for the standard of living here, and they're comparable to Australian prices. Not as expensive, but you're drinking craft beer, you're eating like gourmet burgers and ribs and all that delicious food, right?
Speaking of Australia, when was the last time you were there in Australia?
When I came here in February last year, 2019.
Okay.
So it's almost been 2 years.
Almost 2 years. Do you miss Australia, and what do you miss from home?
Not really. I don't really miss, if I leave a place, I don't really miss it because I try and live in the moment. I feel like I'm quite an optimistic person. I think that's important if you're living and traveling abroad. Obviously, I miss my family, and I try and, with the time difference, it's kind of hard to talk to them, but I make an effort to call my mum and dad either on Friday night or Saturday night before I go out for dinner or something like that. And that will be the next day for them. So I try and make sure that I call them all the time. As far as missing Australia, I think I just miss like getting in my car and just driving somewhere, because like I don't have a car here, and if I want to go somewhere, I always have to have a destination. Whether it be, oh, let's go to the center and see what happens. The destination is still the center. And I do miss like getting in my car, driving to the lake and doing a run around the lake or walking up the mountain. So the freedom of having a car and going somewhere, I do miss that quite a lot, because I feel like I'm quite restricted in this big city.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm here back, and I was supposed to be here for 2 weeks. I'm being here for 10 months now. And even though I didn't have a car in China, I had a car in Brazil before I moved to China. So I know exactly what you mean. Like Uber, like I use Uber, anywhere I want to go, it's Uber all the time. Like, so
Yeah,
luckily it's not expensive here. Uber rides are quite cheap. So
that's great. Good to know.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. It's cheaper, of course, than just taking a regular cab. So that's good. What about foreigners who are considering moving to South America, or specifically Bolivia, and people who just are trying, are like, I know many friends from Europe who just went backpacking around South America, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, Brazil, Argentina. So any tips that you would give someone who's thinking about traveling or moving there?
Yeah, definitely do your research. Join some Facebook groups. I think like you got to be careful about Facebook, because it's people's opinion at the end of the day. Get on YouTube and watch these videos.
Yes, definitely.
Go for it. Make sure that if you're coming here to work, make sure you trust the people that you're coming for, and make sure that they're going to help you in the visa process, or help you like just do the random things like the opening a bank account or something like that, especially if you don't know the language. And because things are done differently, like in each country. Like to open a bank account here in Bolivia is different to doing it in Australia. There's more processes, and if you don't speak the language, then you're going to need someone to help you. So definitely ask for help all the time of people that you're going to work with or you're traveling with. Always say yes. So when you arrive, if someone says, hey, do you want to go to the mall? Hey, do you want to have a barbecue? Hey, do you want to go to the plaza and have a coffee? And you don't really feel like it because you're tired, or you don't want to because you don't know if you like the person, just say yes, especially in the first month. And because if you say no, they're not going to invite you out, and you're not going to have the best experience. So I've learned, and from a few people that have come to South America, come to Bolivia to live, some have said yes and some have said no. And and it's obvious who has a better experience. It's the people who say yes. To do things right.
Totally, yeah. Especially at the beginning, like you don't want to stay at home and just miss out on, because the good thing is that a lot of people, I mean, I'm sure you had coworkers who were experiencing the same thing. First time in Bolivia, first time in South America. So it's good to explore. It's like you have your buddies there to like explore and experience it. So that's excellent. That's a great tip. All right, so guys, if you want to watch videos about Bolivia, living there, traveling around, tips, like more tips and more suggestions, recommendations of like moving to Bolivia and South America, because Ollie is moving to Brazil next month, right, Ollie?
Yeah, I am moving to Brazil. I'm very excited. I can't wait.
So if you want to as well soon watch videos about moving to Brazil, first time experiences, like around the country and stuff, watch Ollie's YouTube channel. It's down in the notes below. Ollie, thank you very much for your time and for all the suggestions and recommendations about Bolivia.
No worries. Thank you for having me.